Thank you for downloading ManageEngine ServiceDesk Plus. In this video, we are going to discuss about hardware asset management. Now let's take a quick tour on what hardware asset management in ServiceDesk Plus offers its users. From different scanning techniques, users can choose the right scanning technique to populate all the asset information. This includes hardware specifications, software installed on the asset, relationships of that specific asset with other devices, history such as ownership and hardware and software changes, requests that are being created against that specific asset, any contracts that's being associated, and the cost information of the asset will be listed. The scanned asset can be assigned to a user manually or by a spreadsheet or by auto-assign techniques. Now, when an end user wants to report an incident or request a service such as software installation, the user can create a ticket and the user can choose the respective asset, fill in the details and create a request. The created request will be listed under the requests page for the requester and as well as for the technician. When they go into the specific ticket, they will get the asset populated right underneath the specific ticket. This provides more flexibility for the technician to view the asset information from the specific ticket. Also, when a change request is created, the assets involved will populate the assets that are being associated to the specific change. Viewing the relationship will provide information on how this particular server is being connected to other entities in the organization. The exclamation mark explains the number of change, incident or service requests that's being created against that specific asset, and from the same page we could view the information about the specific asset and its relationship. Now let's have a detailed view on how hardware asset management can be implemented in ServiceDesk Plus. To have all the asset information in the application, first we are going to discuss the various scanning techniques that ServiceDesk Plus offers. So using our scanning techniques that we have under admin, we can scan the right devices with the right type of scanning technique. Under admin, we have Windows domain scan only to scan Windows machines, and other assets which does not have a Windows operating system on them, we can scan them through network scan. So let's see how we could scan the Windows machines. So first, I would configure the Windows agent before I start my scanning. Under Windows agent configuration, I can click on configure, where it has the server name, port, protocol, agent port, and scan at system startup. With all these in place, I will create a new agent, and this I will deploy it to all the workstations or servers which has Windows operating system in my organization. So if a user requires a laptop and if the user is going to travel, it is always suggested to deploy the agent on the laptop with the said settings and then provide it to the user. So this way, the agent at scan at system startup will push the asset information to ServiceDesk Plus, and also whenever the user connects through VPN to the network, the asset information will be pushed through the URL during the startup. So this way, even the user travels and when connects to the network, the asset information will be updated into ServiceDesk Plus. The asset information is captured under workstations, under desktops or laptops, and as a server in ServiceDesk Plus. All assets that's being reported will be in in-store state. Now, when I wish to assign this specific asset to a user or to a department, I would change the asset state from in-store to in-use, choose the user or associated to a specific asset, choose the user's department, site, and click on Save. So once I've assigned the asset to a user, under relationships, it is going to give me the data of what this asset is and to whom it's been assigned to. Also, as we discussed earlier, if this asset has any change requests or incident tickets raised against this asset, the data will be populated under relationships. Hardware and software tabs provide the specifications on what that particular hardware is all about. Now, say for instance, Earlier, we had a request created for laptop slowness. Now, if this user is going to report the same issue or request for a new software, technician can have a quick view from the ticket itself to understand what's the hardware and software spec of this particular laptop, thus providing them more clarity on any enhancements towards this particular asset. History is going to have traces of all hardware, software changes, the ownership changes that happen on the specific asset, all the requests that's been created against the specific asset will be reported under the Request tab. Contracts tab will provide information about contract that's being associated to this asset, and Financials will provide all the cost information of this specific asset. Similarly, to scan other assets such as printers, routers, switches, access points, virtual machines, Linux or Mac machines, we can go with the network scan. Before I scan those assets using the network scan, they will have different credentials that needs to be used during the scan. For that, we go to the credential library, add a credential, choose the credential type, provide its details, and click on Save. So this way, we could capture all the credentials that we are going to use to scan a specific IP or a IP range or the network. So I click on Add Network, I provide the IP details and choose the credentials that's been added. Once I've chosen them, I'll click on Save, and then I can scan the specific network or the IP range. So this way, assets from the specific IP range or network will be scanned and added into the Assets tab under the specific classification. Now, once it's added, the asset information, as we discussed earlier, will be populated under the respective tabs. Now, how does the system understand that this specific IP is a printer or a router? For which we have product types and products. Under product type, we have different type of products which has been hard-coded as IT assets. So all the IT assets are the assets which we can scan. And under products, for those IT assets, we are going to define the model for those assets. So over here, I choose the IT asset, provide its model, and click on Save. So this way, all the models are being registered in ServiceDesk Plus. Now when the asset is scanned, the model is being recognized and the asset information is populated underneath the right classification. If in case the information is all populated, but still ServiceDesk is unable to understand what device it is, the scanning fails. In that situation, under Admin tab, we have Scan Settings. Over here, we would get the list of IP addresses and the object ID of that specific device which failed during the scan. We can update this information with the corresponding product type, the model, and its vendor, and click on Save. So, upon consecutive scanning, the information will be populated right underneath specific product type and the asset will be scanned successfully. Now, once these assets are all populated into the system, under the Assets tab, we get the dashboard, and on the left hand side, we get the asset information. Now, let me go into Workstation and see how I can assign all these assets to the corresponding users and how do they work. When an asset has been scanned, the state of the asset is going to be in store. Now, when I need to associate this asset to the user, I need to change the asset state from in store to in use. So I can do this manually one by one, or I could do this in bulk using the following techniques. Auto Assign Workstation. So once I click on Auto Assign Workstation, the asset information and the suggested owner, which is the last logged in information of that asset, will be populated. I can choose all the assets in a single shot and click on Assign Owner. The other method is a CSV method. To prepare a CSV file, the steps are really simple. I generate a report from ServiceDesk by going to the Reports tab, New Custom Report. If it's only workstations and servers, or if it's just workstations, I would choose my classification, click on Proceed to Report Wizard. Over here, I need the workstation name, the model of the workstation, service tag, and user information. So once I get these columns ready, I can run the report. This gives me data of the machine name, model, service tag, and the user information. Once I get the information, I can export this information as XLS file. Once I get this as an XLS file, I can update further columns to the spreadsheet and provide the user details. We have brought in a feature where providing the login name of the users would fetch the user information from the application automatically. So in your spreadsheet, all you have to do is have a column with the login name alone, and upon the import under the Assets tab, we would fetch the user's information from the system and associate it to the corresponding users. This way, there would not be any room for error with regards to duplicate user information. Now once the file is chosen, I get the template for workstation CSV import. Over here, the workstation name, which is the machine name, and the model are mandatory field. Then I can go ahead and populate rest of the other information that is required for the import. So as discussed earlier, I would choose the login information from the spreadsheet so that when the users are imported, the user's name, department, and site will be updated along with the asset, and the state would be changed to in use. So this way, using a spreadsheet, I can bulk update user information to all the assets. How do I deal with the situation where there are branch offices of my organization located in different geographical location, or they are on a total different network? Now ServiceDesk Plus is my central server, which holds all asset information, tickets, changes, and so on. We have another tool called as Asset Explorer, which can be deployed, and this Asset Explorer can be configured as a probe. Since ServiceDesk Plus is the central server, I can configure the Asset Explorer as a probe server. Doing this will act as an agent or a standalone probe where I can use all the scanning techniques such as domain scan and network scan, deploy agent for all the assets in this network or location, configure my credential library information, and set up all the scanning techniques. Once all these assets are being scanned, I can set this probe to schedule and push the data to my central server, which is my ServiceDesk Plus server. On doing that, in ServiceDesk Server under the Admin tab, I have Distributed Asset Scan. Over here, the probe information will be fetched, the asset information will be downloaded, and the assets will be deposited under the corresponding classification. So this way, using Distributed Asset Scan method with the help of Asset Explorer probe, I can fetch information from different geographical location or from a different network and fetch the information into ServiceDesk Plus. Once all the assets are scanned, and if there is an incident ticket where a user reports an issue, we can also perform a remote operation to the user's computer. So this can be done with the help of our ServiceDesk agent, or we have other remote control tools which we can configure and make use of during the remote operation. So in ServiceDesk Plus, we can add a new remote control tool, provide the information pertaining to the tool, and perform the remote control. Now, what are the other ways where we could add assets into ServiceDesk Plus? Organizations have the finance department or the purchasing department procuring assets to the organization. Those assets will be shipped to the organization, and the shipped assets will be first maintained in the purchasing department's registry or the finance department's registry, and from there it comes to IT. Now it might be in a form of a spreadsheet, so using our CSV method we can add the assets into the system, or if they are going to use the barcode technique that we have in ServiceDesk Plus, it saves more time and the asset information would right away be captured in ServiceDesk Plus rather than a spreadsheet. Now let's take a quick tour on what we have in barcode techniques. So using the barcode generation, we have three different methods to add assets along with its barcode. First, We could make use of the vendor's barcode, which is the barcodes from the box. When scanned, it fetches the service tag and adds the service tag as a barcode as well as service tag for the respective asset. Next, we can generate our own barcode for individual assets or different type of products and label it against a specific asset. Or we could use the service tag or the asset tag information and populate that data against the barcode information. Now let's see in detail about how this works. Using the vendor's barcode. Over here, I'm going to choose the product type, which is for which type of product I'm receiving all the assets, its specific model, and start scanning the barcode, and the barcode information will start getting deposited into the application. Now I can also choose the option barcode as service tag, so this piece of information will be deposited both as a barcode and also as a service tag. Now when I click on add asset, the asset information is added into ServiceDesk Plus, having the barcode as a service tag. The second method is going to be generating our own barcode. So over here, we will also be doing the same process by choosing the product type, the model, and then I can also use barcode as a service tag, choose the prefix and suffix, the starting value, and the count of how many barcode needs to be generated. Once I click on generate barcode, assets will be created in ServiceDesk Plus with different barcode information. Then it also helps me to print the barcodes from the print barcode section, unprinted barcodes. I can go ahead and choose the particular barcode area and start printing the barcodes. Then I can use it against a specific asset and label the asset with the barcode. The third method is going to be barcode generation for an existing asset. So if the asset is already scanned into ServiceDesk Plus, all I have to do is choose the product type. Then using the asset data, I can choose any of the asset field information and populate that data against the barcode field. The asset that is received using the vendor's barcode has the same service tag and the barcode with the same piece of information, and this information is also used as the CI name. Now, when this asset is added to the network and upon being scanned, this asset will be overwritten with the scanned data, retaining the barcode information, the model, the product, the service tag, and be updated with the hardware, software, and user information after the scan is successful. So this way, all assets received with the barcode and use the barcode as a service tag, upon being deployed into the network, they will update the assets which matches the service tag, and thus there will not be duplicate information and the asset information will be overwritten. Also, we have purchase module where purchasing department can use ServiceDesk Plus to create a purchase request or a purchase order, and then once the purchase order is approved and once the items are getting shipped, you can receive the items through the purchase order, and this receiving process will add assets into ServiceDesk Plus. So those assets can also be marked with the service tag, and upon scanning, the asset information will be updated along with the purchase order information, retaining the purchase order details and the asset information. During our implementations, we have seen organizations still using paper and pen to loan assets to its users. Now this can be eased off in ServiceDesk Plus using the asset lease option. So under a workstation, we can edit the specific asset. When loaning out to a specific user, I can set this asset is leased, and I can say from which date to which date the asset is going to be used by the user and click on save. So this way, when the date expires and the asset is still not be returned, the system is going to send out notification to the technician as well as to the user stating the asset leased has not been returned yet. So this way, rather using a paper and pen, it can be tracked in ServiceDesk Plus. When hardware asset management is completely implemented, let's see how we could ease our job in fetching our assets in a single click. This can be done using groups. We can create new groups, and while doing so, we have two options. Static group helps us to pick and group assets based on asset state, and dynamic groups helps us to pick and group assets based on different configuration of the asset. So for a static group, I can group assets based on in-store. I can click on save. I can do the condition stating that all assets in in-store state. Click on add, and this way I have created a filter and I've associated all the assets which are in in-store state. Likewise, I can create a new dynamic groups by filtering assets based on model. Over here, I have different criteria from which I could pick and create a filter and create a group specific for different models. This way, I can click on the group and list all the assets that is required.